Morning, everyone. Apologies for the delay in starting the webinar. My name is Nag. I'm the co-founder with Canibuild, and I will be running the webinar today. I apologize for Tim not being able to attend the webinar and run the webinar. He was very excited about today's webinar because we are launching 3D. Tim currently is traveling to America, and he is meeting some of our prospective and present clients. Unfortunately, he got very stuck in San Diego traffic, and he hasn't been able to reach the venue where from he was supposed to present the webinar. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump in and share my screen and take you through the features of Canibuild, which we have recently added, and also focus on the 3D aspect of the application. I have seen quite a few attendants joining. So again, good morning to everyone. So I'm just sharing my screen. I hope everyone can see my screen there. Again, during the webinar, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to pop it in the chat and questions. I'll be more than happy to answer it through. So I will run it like taking you through all the features that Canibuild presently has, and at the end of the session, we will take you through the 3D aspect of the features and how we are planning to launch it. So I hope everyone can see my screen there. When you log on to Canibuild, it's again, the front end of the screen is on the top right left hand side. We'll type in the address to have a look into the property. So here, if I look into the property here in Terry Hills, which is in Sydney, we'll look up the property, which starts populating the details of the property, which includes the property boundaries, which includes the lot and DP details, the zoning. It also
good, Kate, and you?
Yeah, good.
So it also identifies any bushfire, council requirements, or any overlays that might affect the approval process or the construction of the property. If I look on the top right-hand side, again, we have the contours here, which is the wavy lines. If I click onto that, it brings the contours on the property, which shows how the block is sloping. As we all know, Canibuild is powered by high-resolution imagery, which provides the best quality imagery available in the market. We have partnered with multiple mapping providers and ensure that we have the latest imagery, even in the areas where some of the aerial imagery doesn't cover. So we are working with them to give that information through. We all recently launched a feature where we'll be able to navigate from the older images in the property. So if you look up some properties where the current image is not the best because of a cloudy weather or there is a tree on site, you can navigate and look into previous imagery. So this is a feature that was recently launched. We also have launched bird's eye view, which I believe was covered in the previous webinars, but just for someone who is not aware of it, on the bottom right hand side corner, if you click on it, will identify what we call a bird's eye view, which is basically the image taken at an angle or from an oblique angle, which allows you to rotate the screen. Lets you identify if there are any windows on the existing property, what about the next door properties, which comes really handy for our granny flat builders, pool builders, and even builders who are into knockdown rebuild. The street view, which previously was accessed from only this little man at the bottom right hand corner, can also be accessed by clicking onto the street view over here, which helps you identify the street view, which comes in handy in situations to see if it's a busy road, you need traffic control, and so on and so forth. Once you have identified the property, looked into the property boundaries and any overlays, we can go in here, add the details of the client. So if I'm adding, let's say, Mr. Nick Dan, as a client, you can have a mobile number, we can add in an email address and save that information. The information of the client can be integrated into your sales CRM. So if you're using HubSpot, Pipedrive, or any other popular CRMs, you have the way to integrate any leads or any client that you're entering here into your CRM. So which doesn't need to be manually added in. Once we have done this, we can click onto the designs and we can navigate the designs that we offer. So I'm just going to click onto our 3D designs that we have and select one of the designs to start through. So once I'm selecting the design, the system automatically identifies the setback requirements that we have on this property, which is shown by the shaded gray area. If the area is not very clear and the aerial imagery makes it a bit too noisy, we can always click onto the map view here, which will identify the shaded area a bit more clearly. We can rotate the build. And you can see it also identifies the distance from the boundaries as well. If I go in and type in the distance that I need from the boundaries to an exact measurement, for example, the client wants the house to be 2 meters from the boundary, you can actually type in 2, let's say 6 from the rear. If the orientation of the garage and the bedroom is something that the client wants to change, you can always flip or mirror image the design. And I'm very sure that you are using it. I'm still covering it for the sake of our new participants who haven't been on our webinar or haven't had the chance to use and see Canibuild in details. So just covering those features in here. Once we have placed the design, if I click on the rules section, it identifies the rules and regulations that are required, not only from a CDC aspect, which is the statewide rules in New South Wales. You can also switch to the DCP or the council rules. So as you see, when I switch to the Warringah DCP, it changed the setback requirements where the rear setbacks changed 6 meters from, which I believe was 3 meters in the rear. Now, once you have placed the design based on the contours, you're able to identify the slope across the block, which shows that the block is sloping a bit from the front of the property towards the rear, and there is a bit of a slope across the design. If I click on to toggle structural elevation, which is one of the options in the bottom left-hand corner here, it identifies the 4 corners of the design, and it identifies the level difference between the 4 corners. Today, when we go through the 3D aspect of the application, we will show how this has been modified and better explained in the 3D part. But from the current status, we can identify the block is sloping from the front towards the rear, where the finished floor level in the corner B, C, and D are 750 and 1 meter up in the air, whereas finished floor at corner A is basically on the natural ground level. If I am showing this to the client and the client wants to see any other different options which they can put on the design, we don't necessarily need to replace this design. We can have this one as option 1. If you go into deals, which I have seen some of our clients not using as much, so I thought I'll cover this part. So if we go into deals, we can actually create a new deal or basically even copy the existing deal that we have done for Mr. Nick Tan here. And give another option to the client, saying this is another option that we can offer on the same block. So if the client is not very sure which are the 2 or 3 options they want to go through, you can give the client multiple options. And the reason I choose this is to cover a few of the other features that was not available for the design which I uploaded. So when we are uploading designs on Canibuild, and Canibuild does that for our clients, where we can upload different facade options which are available. We can also upload different plan options. So if there are standard modifications which you want to show your client, you can load them up in here. For example, in the same design, if you want to show a rhombus associated, that can be done. And again, when you are breaching the setback with this additional rhombus, you can see it identifies the breach in the setback. So if it's a tight block of land and the client wants an additional upgrade, you can identify that there might be issues with the setback, which needs to be looked into. Now, once we have placed the design, we have identified the slope across the block. We have identified what's on site and what are the overlays which might be affecting the approval process, and the client is happy and satisfied with this. You can go in and use our drawing tools here to draw, for example, driveways. Which allows to even measure areas. For example, if there is a demolition needs to be done, that can be calculated using that. It can be changed in a different color. We can always put some sort of shading, which here, a pattern of an exposed concrete, for example. You can add an annotation by right-clicking, which should say proposed driveway, for example. Once you have done this, the same annotations can be used on the property, on the design itself, where we can go and add an annotation on the kitchen to say, well, let's say it's a kitchen bench top and so on and so forth. But again, I'm not going to drag this part. I'm pretty sure many of you are already using it. So if I just want to generate as a floor plan or a flyer, we can go into the card option where we can generate site plans, we can generate flyer. A lot of our clients might not be aware of the different options or items that we offer to our clients on the card. For example, for pools and granny flat pools and sheds all over Australia, we do offer permits or building approvals, whether it's done through the council or through a building certified, private certifier, or a building surveyor. We are offering that all across Australia for our house builders. We are offering items such as geotech report surveys, which are even slab design and structural engineering plans, almost within, say, 5 to 10 working days turnaround time, which is much faster than the market. So you're working with a lot of our clients on the marketplace items. If there is any interest in this, I will encourage all our attendants to reach out to your account managers to have a chat with them, and they will have a better idea in terms of explaining you what we can offer. I can hear the fire alarm in our building has gone off. I hope it's just a false alarm and can keep going on the demo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly jump into the 3D aspects of the application and show you that. So I'm just going back into the previous designs that I've placed on the property, which is a model here. Now, if you have a floor plan placed on the property, which identifies all the distance and everything, at this stage, if you see, we have introduced a new icon here at the bottom of the list, which is the 3D. If I click onto that, it will start rendering and processing the 3D aspect of it. It takes about 30 to 40 seconds to generate the render because it is pretty heavyweight in terms of what it is trying to achieve. But as you can see, it is pretty quick to generate the 3D. Now, the difference between the 3D that Canibuild is presenting to compare to some of the other 3D which is out in the market, it is just not a gimmicky looking 3D model. It is a fully functional 3D which will identify not only how the design is going to sit on the property, but also identifies the cut and the fill volume on the property. So if you can see here, it based on the contours, if you would remember previously when you placed, this level was the lowest point, or the corner rail was the lowest point on the ground, and the block, highest point, and the block was sloping to the rear. You can see it's identifying that there is a cut required if we are placing the design here, which is signified by the red portion here. If I look into the rear, it is identifying the droppage of the block. So based on the contours, the system is smart enough to identify how much of a cut and fill will be required. And if you see at the very bottom here, it is also calculating the cut and fill volume and the droppage volume. As we are moving the location of the house, you can see the volume, cut and fill volume changes, and it is visualized here on the 3D model as well. So if we are sitting with our end clients, we are showing them how the house design that they're placing on the block is going to look like. They can not only see the level difference, how Canibuild used to show previously, but it can actually show the amount of exposed surface or of droppage beam or the cut volume. There are some other functionalities in the 3D, which I'm going to go through. Is if I'm right clicking on the 3D, it identifies, you can actually place the floor plan, so you can see how this looks like. We can go in and you can even load in complete 3D models. Of the design. And go in, we can remove the roof of the design, and you can show your client how their house design is going to look like. We can rotate it, you can reposition it. And now if I'm changing the height of it, you can see how the dropped edges are increasing. And if I'm cutting it into it, it identifies. Now we are cutting into it. The same thing can be done with the granny flat as well. So I'll just quickly go into one of the granny flat models and show how that works. I believe one of our attendees, Sharon, has a question. She has raised a hand. Sharon, I would appreciate if you put it on. If you have any questions, put it on the chat. Yes, Sharon, it will calculate the retaining walls as well. So it will identify the volume of the cut and the fill and the area of the retaining wall that is required. And same for the pool side of things, it will identify So one thing with the 3D aspect is if we don't have a 3D model loaded in, it will automatically extrude the floor plan and show it something like this. If we have loaded in a 3D model, which again Canibuild can help you generate 3D models and load in as well. So it will show the entire 3D model in here. A lot of our clients might not have a functional 3D model. So, but if you have, we can load that up in here. If we don't, we can go through and show the 3D model. You can remove the roof. You can show the floor plan here. And as I'm moving it around, it is identifying the change in the cut and fill volume or the changes in the droppage. When we are reaching the setback requirement, it will identify that too. Gabriela has asked if we can help in generating 3D models. Obviously, of course, we can. We'll encourage Gabriela to be in touch with your account manager. They can give you a bit more understanding of what is required. All is required is basically your floor plans. If we get a hold of them, we can help you generate 3D models through our system, and that can be loaded into Canibuild as well. The same can be done for pools, sheds, houses, duplex. So it is irrespective of the design type that you're would be using. So in situations where we don't have a 3D floor plan or 3D model loaded in, if we are just putting a design, it will basically have an extruded structure looking like this, which will still show the roof, and basically you can extrude the floor plan to the height. Now, if I'm increasing, for example, this design, you can see the amount of droppage that shows here. It's a very like a granite flat, almost 2-story high up in the air. And the same thing can be done if we are pushing it down or cutting through the So this is basically what we have launched for 3D, where we are able to extrude floor plans if we don't have a 3D model loaded up. If there are 3D models already loaded up on like if you have already prepared, we can load that up in the system. If you don't have prepared, we can help you prepare those 3D models. It allows you to identify the cut and fill volume. It helps you identify how the design is going to behave with the contours on the property, help you identify the cut and fill volume here, which can be displayed to the client. And it can basically even show the client in a very detailed way, in a very rich way, what is the floor plan looking like and what's the model going to look into. I am very sorry, guys. My fire alarm in the office has been going on for a while, and I can hear a fire truck. I have to perhaps cut short this webinar, and I might have to step out. So I will just answer a few other questions. Sharon is saying there would be some new design in our range, and we can help Sharon to look into it and see if there basically we can load those designs up and also the 3D models for you. If there are any other questions from any other participants, I'm more than happy to look into those and answer. If not, we are more than happy to individually chat with any of our clients who are more interested into the 3D side of things and want it to be integrated onto your subscription. Please be in touch with our account managers to have a chat with them and explain how this works. Phil, I will be sending you we will upload this webinar onto YouTube as well. Please have a look into it. But again, if there are any questions, the customer success team will be more than happy to answer them. Jump onto a training session with you to show you how to use the 3D functionality of the application. Thank you again so much, everyone, for joining in. And I really, really appreciate everyone attending, and apologies for Tim not being a part in the webinar. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.